coming back to telling ourselves stories, you have an incredible story. And that is in many ways how I came into contact with you and your story and your work and your life. For people who've never heard your story, do you want to just share a little bit of how you grew up?
Yeah, sure. In Canada, in Montreal, Canada, French part of the world, my parents were from Europe, both Dutch. And ironically, they came across separately and met when my father was trying to get into his apartment door, and he had a bag full of cans of soup, and my mother was trying to get in her door. And she looked at him and she goes, "Is that dinner?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Maybe I could cook you a real meal." And the rest is history. But they, they went through the war, and the programming of the people behind the buffet for them, think about what that was like, right? Hide, sirens going off, get in the bunker. There might be no food. You're going to die, et cetera, et cetera. The Germans are coming. Fear, 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 fear in their bodies. So they fled to Canada. And then they had me and my sister. And my father was just a very introverted person that my mother needed to give him 3 weeks before she could invite people to the house so he could prepare mentally. Just think of the programming there and the awkwardness with us kids. Anyway, they got divorced when I was 5. And I lived with my mother for a while. She was a gypsy. She spent a lot of time not at the house when we came home from school. So I ended up setting fire to things and looking for attention. And all of this sent me to my father's house when I was about 9 years old, 8.5, 9 years old. And he had remarried and he lived on a farm now. And he was going to straighten rock out. He was going to, I stole money from my mom's purse to go get some food because sometimes she wasn't home and I was hungry. It was a little thing kids do. But I got labeled as a liar and a thief and a troublemaker. And so when that happens, think about if your parents keep on telling you you're beautiful, smart, lovely, or keep on telling you you're a liar, you're a thief, you're no good for nothing, and you're going to go out and you're going to work and you're going to straighten yourself out, just think about the cocktail of possibility. So first I rebelled, but then when that didn't work because I was 8.5, I couldn't take on my father and he had the control of the food and the circumstances, then I succumbed. And after I did that, I learned the most important lesson of my life is that life is happening for you, not to you. And when that happened, I became a champion of everything. Every task, every job, I said, I will do it better than he expects. I will do it deeper, longer. I'll paint it better. So that every time he came out to inspect it, there was nothing he could say that wasn't good enough. I wanted him to be proud of me. And of course, as the story goes, I never hit that point. He always found something. But I think there's 2 types of people, and we can label it fight or flight. And I was a fighter for some reason. I had something in me that wanted me to break through. So I just kept on finding ways to fight, to grow, to expand, to learn, to get better. And I don't want to say it's easy. I felt alone a lot. I felt like I didn't belong like a lot of people. But over time, when I really, Candice, went out into the real world by the time I was 17, the skills I had, the habits I had. I went to McDonald's. I did the job of 2 people. I didn't even know it. They said, like, Joe's sick. Can you clean the lobby? It's normally 2 people. Just do your best. I easily did the job of 2 people. And so what happened is I went into the real world. I started getting all these promotions and all these opportunities because my father had schooled me on how to be somebody who can take action, not get tired, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, I was able to accomplish a lot. But with every experience that I've learned, like, I don't know what your upbringing is and your background is. And of course, you're physically beautiful. You're gorgeous to look at. You have an intelligence and a passion to help people. But what I learned is that, as I became this dominant force, I also alienated myself from people. When I played sports, I had to crush the competition. And so everything became like, I had a hammer for everything. And so I didn't really do well with friends because I beat them at everything. I was better than them at everything. And so I had to learn that skill. So if you're listening to this, maybe you didn't grow up in the environment I did. Maybe you didn't have a warrior as a father. Maybe you had a soft environment. Maybe you learned compassion and patience, and you have great listening skills. So you need to put yourself into an environment where you're going to grow your warrior muscle. Maybe you need to be a little tougher. Maybe you need to go take a kickboxing class. Maybe you need, you know what I mean? Do a Tough Mudder, some things like that. We've all been given an environment that shaped us, but there's usually some parts that need a little bit of rounding out. And so that's been my journey. I'm a much more compassionate person than I used to be because I didn't learn it. And so the journey of overcoming adversity is never ending. And it just depends on what you've been exposed to, that your adversity is going to be different than mine. But you need to be able to get yourself into an environment that's going to force you to grow, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I guess so that's kind of the story of what happened to me. And when I tell the story on that video of the relationship with my father and so wanting, I think, you know, well over 100 million people have seen it. Children want their parents to be proud of them. And it's a driving force. And that kept me going for a long, long time, until you realize that your parents are just the people that conceived you. And maybe you chose them or maybe you don't, if you believe in Louise Hay or things like that. But you can take the charge off of it a little bit when you realize that, you know, there's a higher power. There's something that created you, and they were the vehicle and vessel. Just because you grew up in an area code doesn't mean you have to live there for the rest of your life. And just because you had certain parents, it doesn't mean that you have to give up all your power to them and seek their approval for the rest of your life. And so when I started to get that, I started to expand, I started to become more complete, and I changed my relationship to be more spiritual than seeking the approval of all the people around me. And I don't want to say I don't care what you think about me, but it weighs less, if that makes sense. But one of the things I teach, Candice, is say yes and figure it out later. When you say yes to something bigger than you send a message to the universe that you need some help. When you say, I'll wait until I have everything, the universe sends the resources to somebody else, like Rock Thomas, right? Because when you are expanding, the universe wants to join you. Everything in the universe is about growth. Nature grows. It's growing all the time, never stops, or it dies. And if you keep on waiting for yourself to have everything you need, you're breaking one of the laws. So I said yes. I figured out a way to make the first payment, got into the group, and then met somebody who, with one conversation, taught me how to make an extra $100,000 a year with one meeting. I didn't know what I was running a real estate office, but I missed one of the ways that you can make money and charge people for coming into your office and sell mortgages. I didn't have to do anything more. I just was thinking like this, like a 5-figure person, and he was thinking like a 7-figure person. So the big thing that people have to do is they've got to find a way to scrape together that first $500 or that first $5,000. They got to fight for it. That's their test. I've asked people that say, oh, I want to be in the environment. How many hours a week do you work? About 35 or 40. All right, good. Get a side hustle, get a side job for the next 2 or 3 months and save up the money. And if you don't want to do that, then you don't want this bad enough. And then the other answer is that the reality is you can go to Google, you can listen to, concepts like this, podcasts, you can download books for $3 or something that are really good. But guess what? You have to do the exercises in the book. You can't just consume the information and go, that's a really nice concept, doing affirmations, and then not do them. Oh yeah, I should reflect and review my day and see where I messed up. And if you don't do that, it doesn't happen, right? So many people in personal development talk about morning routines. I love morning routines and I have mine, but I think the piece that is missing is the evening routine. When I take my journal and I reflect on my day, and I celebrate those magic moments, and I appreciate them. The time when I laughed, the time when I was, I held the door open for somebody. And I have a series of questions I ask myself. What did I enjoy? What did I do great? What did I learn? Where did I mess up? How could I do better? And then you do that on a repeated basis at the end of the day, then you become like the professional athlete that reviews the film constantly and can make the tweaks and the minor changes. And then you compound that over time and you become a better version of yourself. And so all that's available for somebody at zero cost. But most of the time, they won't do it because they're not part of a community and they want to be part of a community. So their friends are watching TV in the living room and they want to go and do their journaling. So they go to the living room and watch TV. But when you're part of a community that prides themselves on execution toward greatness, then all of a sudden that's respected. And you say to the group of people, hey, I'm going to journal. They're like, hey, man, oh, yeah, good. Hey, maybe I'll do it too. Hey, let's turn off the TV. Let's all journal, right? And so you change the value system of the people you're around. What people don't know is that there was just an afraid little boy inside, that I wasn't enough. And the tool I had was to win, but I didn't know how to win elegantly. And so I won sometimes by crushing people in business or in sports, or making them feel bad so I could feel good. So I think what you won't see is that deep down inside, there's a loving, kind, beautiful soul that just did the best he could at that time.
Oof, that was beautiful. And it's such a great way to end this. And Rock, this has honestly been such a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much.